Today we will discuss FOSI's Keys 13 through 16 from Betsy Johnson and Jennifer Lewis. Key 13, word forms. There are several difficulties in teaching ELL's word forms, and there are dozens of suffixes and prefixes that must be learned. There's never just one way to change a given part of speech into another. Word form knowledge helps with decoding words, but has limited value in knowing how to form new words. For example, certain word endings can have or be used to create new grammatical forms and actually change the meaning of the original word, or it can help explain the meaning of the original word. But the basic idea is to make the understanding easier for the ELL. And by doing this, it's very important to understand how you must teach this to the ELLs. For example, 4 basic ending types for verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. It's always important to check the spelling of the word and make sure that the ELL understands that the English language is very complex. This leads into the inconsistency with word endings. When there's a lack of consistent word endings, there becomes a serious problem. OUS, for example, is very confusing. But for my students in biology, they understand porous and they use those words, and I'm actually able to coincide the lessons that they're learning in their core classes with what I'm teaching them in English. So we're able to make a connection and build a bridge. A word can often be more than one part of speech. For example, photograph versus I photograph. Another example is survey and to survey a group. One is a verb and one is a noun. Sometimes you can use it as an adjective also. These difficulties for ESL learners is always advised by FOSI that word endings can only be used certainly one way, and that is to decipher an already existing word by using its base or any other parts. Next, we have key 14, which is passive voice. The passive voice talks about the sentence structure, the subject plus a form of to be plus the past participle, where the subject is the receiver of the action. For example, 6 detailed emails were written by Mary. According to FOSI, native speakers have in school been told incorrectly to avoid the passive voice. In my class, we haven't gotten to that part yet because we're learning the simple verb tenses, and before I can move on and teach them passive voice, they have to understand how to use the verbs in the present tense, past tense, and future tense alone. Active voice has a common pattern in English, such as subject plus verb plus direct object. For example, the people of France gave the Statue of Liberty to the United States. It is reported to be a myth, according to FOSI, that every verb is either active or passive. He reports a third category of the verbs. Really quick, let me apologize for my voice. I'm dealing with some form of laryngitis or sinus or allergies. So if my voice goes in and out, please forgive me. Next, we're going to talk about ideas for teaching. With the passive voice, it is usually taught on an intermediate level, and if a younger student asks, choose to explain one-on-one and tell them it will be covered at a higher level later. As I stated earlier, my students are taught at a beginning level because they're all newcomers, and it's quite difficult to move into something beyond what they're in the process of learning now. The traditional way to teach passive voice is to start with a clearly active voice verb, and for example, one where there's a clear actor, a clear action, and a clear receiver. For example, John built a house. That's plain and simple. Number 3, the auction game is noted to be a fun activity that students work in groups to decide which sentence they're most confident about, and then use play money to buy as many correct sentences as possible at the auction. This is described on the pages 137 through 140 in the Art of Teaching, Speaking, Research, and Pedagogy for the ESL/EFL classroom. Key 15. The conditionals, if clauses, and wish. Quite ironically, I am in the process now of teaching this to my students. It is very difficult because my students, once again, are learning basic English, and they're learning that if you do something, there's a consequence. So I'm breaking it down condition by condition. So we're on the 0 condition now, which is always right. For example, if you leave ice out all night, it will melt. That's automatic. There's no negotiation, no compromise. A common question amongst ESL students is, why use past tense for present action, such as, if I were a rich man, I'd buy all the vacant lots on 5th Street. A conditional clause usually speaks of a situation in a hypothetical fashion. For example, if always refers to a hypothetical situation, if something has happened or will happen. The confusion for ESL students comes when we speak of something such as a wish or conditional and uses one of the verbs in past tense. A native speaker knows that the noun or person of reference in the sentences would be I'd or you'd, which once again confuses them because it goes into contractions. I would, you would, with the past tense verbs such as told, helped, etc. Once again, passive voice comes into play. Passive comprehension does not lead to active knowledge. ESL students need explicit instruction for a difficult grammar lesson such as conditionals. When I say explicit, that means we're going to be using gestures, modeling, examples, real life examples. A wish is used as a verb. They are similar in meaning with sentences containing unreal conditions in the present, future, or past tense. Types of conditional sentences. Definition. A conditional sentence expresses the idea that the action in the main clause can only happen if certain condition is met or fulfilled. Once again, we're on 0 conditional sentences. First, 0 is used for facts or situations that are always true. First conditional is used for an action that is likely to happen. For example, if you run in the rain, you will get sick. There's a chance, there's a slight chance, and it's likely to happen. Second is used for an action that is not true or that the speaker thinks it's not very possible. I use second conditional sometimes as a form of motivation. If you do not study for your test tonight for 3 hours, you will not pass. There's a great chance that my students will pass if they just review in class. But I'm telling them to study for 3 hours to motivate them to study and make an excellent grade. Third is used for an action that did not happen. If you sneeze too hard, you will blow your brains out when you sneeze. My grandmother used to tell us to close your eyes when you sneeze. Otherwise, something bad will happen to you. That's just like a myth. It's probably third conditional is not used when you're talking about real life situations. Ideas for teaching. The key to teach conditionals is to ensure that the students understand the word if and wish by modeling and practicing. That's my mantra. I model and practice daily. A facilitator, which is a teacher, should take one condition at a time to ensure the student has practiced and fully digested all of the information without much confusion. As with any ESL lesson, choose topics that are meaningful and will form a bridge from prior knowledge to new knowledge. Key number 16, negating. Negating means that you are making a statement negative. In the English language, the word most commonly used to negate a statement is not. For a native speaker, adding not or don't to an affirmative sentence is a simple way to make it a negative sentence. Not so easy for an ESL student. It is very confusing. There are two ways to negate sentence. Adding not after the verb, and the other would be to add a form of an auxiliary verb, do and not, before the main verb. Two ways to negate in English. By using the word not, I was hungry. I was not hungry. The cat is fat. The cat is not fat. She has done her homework. She has not done her homework. By using do, does, did, plus not. I want a new car. I do not want a new car. My tire has a leak. My tire does not have a leak. Special situations. The verb to be, the word not is always after the verb to be. He is late. He is not late. Takeaways. In negating, do will always transform into do not. Does will always transform into does not. Did will always transform into did not. Group 1, be. Group 2, present past. Think. To be verb, present tense is not. Past tense was not. Takeaways part 2. Group 3 modals. Can is cannot, could not, will not, should not, must not, may not, might not, had better not. And group 4, have and perfect tense, has not and had not. Ideas for teaching. The direct teaching method, known as the deductive method. The teacher will present rules on the board in a lesson to the students. By providing examples to the students and allowing them to try on their own is known as inductive method. The teacher may also write up to 15 examples on the board for students to analyze and determine if they are negative form or affirmative form. The students will also determine, based on the rules given, if the sentences are written in the correct form. Thank you for viewing our presentation. I hope this was informative. Please refer to the discussion questions on the discussion board, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Betsy or myself, and we'll be more than happy to help you.